So good, right? So the Solomon, he started off so well. And yet, as we see in 1 Kings 11, 1-2, King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women. And then the end of verse 2 says, because they will nevertheless, end of verse 2, nevertheless Solomon held fast to them in love. These verbs in the Hebrew, all right? These verbs held fast to them in love. That thought, those words being used, what it directly correlates to is Deuteronomy 6:5. You know what Deuteronomy 6:5 says? Love the Lord your God. And in 1 Kings 11, 1-2, we see these similar verbs being used. So Solomon's heart, his affections are divided. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and as well as, wow, I really loved, and I put my affections towards women, towards something else, towards something that I desire. So your affections matter. It's so interesting, the greatest commandment. What's the greatest commandment? What's up with that? I mean, wouldn't you think the greatest commandment should be obey all the other commandments? I mean, if we were living, right, in a religion, the right answer Jesus would have given is do all the other commands. But instead, Jesus is like, just love the Lord. Right? Your affections, everything that you are, your strength, your soul, your heart, it all. Just give it all. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Your affections matter. One of the ways that you know what you're affectionate about is where do you turn in times of stress? You usually turn to the things that you love in times of stress. You turn to those things that make you cope, right? You turn to those things that you kind of hold on to tightly. What are those things? Junk food, there you go. At least we've got some honesty going on here, right? Coffee. Wow, you guys are like convicting me right now. Although I'm not a big junk food thing, but coffee is a little bit of an issue. Anybody else want to share? Like confess right now. Like let's just have open confession. Let's just do it up. Anybody else? Can I call out people? Is that okay? What are you affectionate about? I'll just start calling out. I mean, that'd be awesome. I love that in church. Let's just be real with each other. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we should just be real. Who cares, right? I mean, what matters is God. Anyway, that's another sermon for another day. But your affections matter. Can I say where I think some of them are too? And this is becoming a little bit of a thing for me. Facebook. I mean, honestly, right? I mean, let's just be honest about Facebook. Like, it can become that distraction. All those like relationships out on the web, like, wow, how much time do you spend on Facebook? How much time do you spend with the Lord? How much? No, really, how much? No, I'm kidding. It's like, wow, Ron's all part. We're going to have confession today. Video games. Computer, you know what I mean? I mean, just, where are your affections? A warning sign for you and for me is when your affections, those things that you love, become more of a priority, become more of a place in your life than Jesus. It's a warning sign. Where are your affections? Where are your affections? And I'll just be honest with you. Here's what I've experienced in the Christian life. There are times, man, I am on the mountaintop. You know what I'm saying? It is like there is nothing but God. You know what I mean? Like I am all about it. And then there are times that you're just like, wow, there's so many things that I want right now. There are so many other things that I desire right now other than God. It is when you're in those valleys, ask yourself, Where are my affections right now? All right, number 2. I'll make these a little bit quicker. Your obedience matters. Your obedience does matter, right? Don't leave this message and be like, oh, well, it's just about a heart thing. It doesn't matter if I obey. It doesn't matter if I do what God says. No, your obedience matters. It's just not the primary problem, all right? Verse 2, we see very clearly God had set up the law. He set up a command, do not intermarry. Solomon's like, whatever. In fact, here's an amazing thing. Think about this. Solomon was the wisest man, right? The wisest person ever to walk the earth. In fact, if you read 1 Kings 8:61, it talks about that Solomon knew that the thing to do in life was to follow God's commands. So he was intelligent, he was wise. He not only was wise, he knew the law, he knew what to do, yet he did not obey. Who does that sound like? I think it sounds like Jay. No, who does that sound like? How many times in our small groups do we kind of sit around and we're like, man, I really want to know more about, sanctification. And how does sanctification work? And what about the millennium? And what about, the rapture? Is the rapture going to happen? And what about soteriology? And what about theology? And what about all the other ologies and bibliology? And what about all these kind of things? And some of you are like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, exactly. What are you talking about? You just follow Jesus? We have a tendency to value education over obedience. We have a tendency to value, let's know more, and we end up sometimes doing less. I'm all about knowing more. I got messages, video, all those kind of things I'm all about. But what I get one of my pet peeves, we talked about pet peeves. Sweet. One of my pet peeves is knowledge without obedience. I went through seminary, sat in a ton of conversations with a bunch of people, and they were all about all these ologies. And it's like, well, have you shared your faith recently? Like, when's the last time you shared your faith? Share my faith. I need to know more about sanctification. Really? Well, part of sanctification, right, is sharing your faith. Anyway, all right. Little pet peeve. Sorry. Your obedience matters. It's not all about knowledge, because Solomon was wise. Solomon knew it. It's about obeying. 1 Samuel 15:22 says, to obey is better than sacrifice. Imagine that. I think at the heart of that, right, is these people coming to God with an offering, coming to God with a sacrifice, and yet not living out what they're called to live. Are you there? Coming to church, doing the deal. I know a whole lot about God. I know a whole lot about His commands. Yet my life and obeying and following Him, okay, big warning sign. When you begin to disobey, when you begin to kind of get off course, warning sign. It's not your major problem. Your major problem is a heart issue, but you got an issue going on. There's something about obedience. Okay, your obedience matters. Number 3, your relationships matters, right? Verse 3, he spent time with all of his wives, 700 of them, 300 concubines, all these kind of things. Your relationships matter. I think this is so significant, right? For students, for kids, 4th, 5th graders, junior hires, high schoolers. Your friends matter. Who you hang out with matters. Who you're dating matters. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, it doesn't really matter.